All right, welcome back everyone. Listen, if you are gearing up for your big ninth grade biology review, you have landed in exactly the right place. Today, we're looking at the human body as this incredibly complex machine, right? And it operates on a microscopic instruction manual. By the end of this rapid-fire explainer, you're going to have a rock-solid grasp on exactly how your biological code is read, copied, and passed on. So let's lock in these concepts.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the DNA blueprint, move right into growth and cell division, explore creating genetic variation, predict some inherited traits, and finally, we'll zoom all the way out to human reproduction. Let's get moving.
So, part 1, the DNA blueprint.
Let's zoom way down to the molecular level. I want you to think of DNA and chromosomes as the actual physical binders that hold your biological manual. When we talk about inheritance, these structures are the ones doing all the heavy lifting. They store the incredibly precise instructions that determine the characteristic traits passed from parent to offspring. Literally, it is the raw data that makes you, well, you.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is there's a bit of a catch. Not every single page in that manual actually has a recipe on it. We've got coding DNA, which provides the specific genetic instructions for your traits. But you also have non-coding DNA. And these regions, they don't actually code for specific traits. Think of them kind of like the blank margins or the physical binding of a book. They are definitely both there, but they serve entirely different biological purposes.
All right, moving on to section 2, growth and cell division. So now that we know what the manual actually is, how does the body use it? Well, this brings us to mitosis. And look, for your review, we aren't just memorizing phase names here. We really need to look at the outcomes. Mitosis absolutely drives your physical cellular growth, for sure, but it also drives cell differentiation. Basically, that means it allows a really basic general cell to read different parts of the manual and specialize. It becomes a heart cell or a skin cell or a brain cell. It's how we develop into complex organisms. But what happens if that manual gets copied incorrectly? Or what if the copying just completely speeds out of control? Well, that abnormal cell division is exactly what causes cancer. On the flip side of that, though, by studying how early cells differentiate naturally, scientists basically created the entire foundation of stem cell research. They are exploring exactly how those initial cellular decisions are made. It's fascinating stuff.
Which brings us to section 3, creating genetic variation.
So think about this. If we all share a really similar human instruction manual, why don't we all look exactly the same? The answer is genetic variation. And this comes from 4 main sources that you need to know. First, we get brand new genetic combinations formed during meiosis. Second, we have viable typo errors, basically mutations that happen during DNA replication. Third, we see mutations that are actually caused by environmental factors. And lastly, human-driven genetic engineering. Those 4 mechanisms, they are the ultimate sources of all the amazing biological diversity we see.
Okay, section 4, predicting inherited traits. So the crucial point is, this is where we actually use probability to predict the outcomes of all those genetic remixes. Now, here is a massive concept you absolutely must remember for your review. The traits you actually express, they aren't just a simple coin flip based entirely on your DNA. No way. Trait probability is heavily influenced by the interaction between your genetic factors and your environmental factors. It's nature and nurture constantly working together. And when we apply that kind of math across a whole group of organisms, we can actually map out the distribution of expressed traits. You'll see that some trait expressions are going to be extremely common, others will be moderate, and some will be quite rare. Tracking this shifting distribution over time is exactly how biologists monitor changes in entire populations.
Finally, section 5, human reproduction and development.
And this brilliantly illustrates the big picture. How does this complete instruction manual actually get published for the next generation? Well, it requires the structures of the reproductive system working absolutely flawlessly right alongside your other human body systems. From there, these incredibly complex processes of embryonic development take over. And remember, just like our traits, this development is influenced heavily by the surrounding environment. Every single one of these pieces must perfectly align to maintain the continuity of life and pass that biological manual forward.
So, we've reviewed the blueprint, cell division, genetic variation, probability, and the continuity of life. But as you finish studying for your biology review, I want you to consider this one thing. As our understanding continues to grow, how might future advances in things like genetic engineering or stem cell research permanently change human development? Because, we aren't just reading the manual anymore, we are literally learning how to rewrite it.
Thanks so much for joining this explainer, and seriously, best of luck with your review. You've got this.